Hey boss, you wanted to see me?
Yeah, come on in. So you know the house you've been working on?
Yeah?
You're fired from the project.
What? No, but I'm not finished yet.
Yeah, well, let's just say the last little addition you put on the house, it's an eyesore. And people have been complaining about it for weeks.
But I don't understand. Who's going to finish the house?
Nobody's gonna work on it. We're done with it. In fact, if it were up to me, I'd probably tear it down right now. But unfortunately, we put too much time and money into this, so we can't just tear it down. It's probably just gonna stay standing there with nobody living in it. Don't give me the puppy dog eyes.
What's up, guys? Mason the Brock Henderson here, and this is Legends of Tomorrow, Season 7, Episode 12, Too Legit to Quit. Apologies for the sun that's beaming in from the window that's way too high for me to block off. And what's also bad about it is whenever I record my intro for this video, it's probably going to have moved. So it's probably going to jump from nothing being here to this bright, shining light. And I kind of hate it, but this is where I am filming for right now. But this is the last day I'm filming here, so should be back up in my room tomorrow. But anyways, getting into this, the penultimate episode of Legends of Tomorrow, and gotta tell you, man, I am so excited that the final episode is going to be all focused on this one guy going back to break a fixed point in time to save the love of his life. This guy that we just got to know this season. Yeah, it's going to be all about the final episode of this show that spans 7 seasons that focused on this big team of characters. We get introduced to a guy in the final season, and now it's going to end. The whole series is going to end with his love story. Isn't that just fantastic? I'm so excited for I just don't get it. I don't understand. First of all, so much of this episode is devoted to the gooey romantic and feelings and stuff. I'm sick of it. I'm sick of it. We spent so much of this season focused on feelings over facts, and it's stupid. I mean, Sarah and Ava are talking to the AI Gideon, who's pointing out the problems that, we need to protect the timeline. You guys were regularly breaking the timeline to suit what you guys felt, to try to help certain people that were not helped originally, but now they are. And who knows what that could change in the timeline? Who knows what changes that could bring about? You don't know for sure. And again, because the show's all happy-go-lucky, they're going to make it to where, no, those changes actually made the timeline better. It probably would not in real life if this were even possible. And I once again go back to my argument of, why are we doing this in a show where we can't do this in real life? We can't just go back and change history. So why is this the moral of the show of, yeah, changing history is a good thing? You can't do that in real life. History happened. It's not changing. It's staying the same. What you can do is learn from that history and make changes that way. But no, this show's like, hey, just change history so the bad stuff never even happened. Well, guess what? If the bad stuff doesn't happen, you can't learn from it. You make mistakes, you learn from them. That's how it works. You can't just go back, change it, and boom, we're done. And honestly, on top of that, you really have to look at it from the point of view of, you've changed the lives of a few people that you personally got to know. What about the rest of the people that are going through the exact same thing? What about all of them? You're just going to leave them to live in their shit? But at least we changed the life of this one person. So if you're going to work off of that logic of just taking out all the bad stuff that happened to people in the past, you're never going to stop changing lives. You changed the life of that Eddie guy and then the one woman who was dating the mobster that was going to get killed. You changed their lives. Well, guess what? There's probably 1,000 more of them in that time period. So why not go change all of their lives? Well, because if you did for all of them, that would massively change the timeline, because at the end of the day, it has to happen or else people won't learn from it. The mistakes of our past have to stay there. And the show is acting like, no, you can just change it. No, you can't. Even if time travel were possible, you couldn't just go back and change it without probably messing things up for the worse. So the fact that we've come back to that stupid argument is already dumb. But then on top of that, it's the fact that we kind of come to a nice resolution where the human Gideon is going to work with the AI Gideon to keep the timeline intact. They're going to work together and make sure it all works out. But then you've got Gary, who's going to stay there because, isn't the relationship between him and Gideon so amazing? No, it's not. He's a freaking comedic character. Why are you making him so, isn't that just sweet? No. So you've got him sitting there trying to make things, we could change the timeline to make things better. And so AI Gideon obviously sees that as a threat to the timeline, so she gets rid of Gary. And I'm just like, okay, so now we have a setup where we're going to have Gwen going back in time to change what happened to Alan. We're going to have Gideon, the human Gideon and the AI Gideon, both going back to stop him. I'm guessing somehow the other legends are going to find out about that. I don't know how, but they're probably going to go back and try to help him too. I'm just sitting here asking, why is this the final episode setup? Why is this such a big deal? I know why, because the show cares more about relationships than it does actual superheroing and saving the day. So, of course, it's going to end on saving a relationship over protecting the timeline. But seriously, of all of the relationships, why focus on this one that just showed up in this season? And one we didn't even really know about until like halfway through the season? Why is this the be-all, end-all? And I will say it is kind of stupid that Alan's death is considered a fixed point in time. I know some of it is probably surrounding the fact that if Alan doesn't die, then Gwen doesn't go invent time travel. But it still feels like if you take Alan out of the picture by not killing him, but again, what they did with, I think, Marilyn Monroe, where you pretend that they still died, but you just essentially took them out of the timeline, and that's how they died. I don't understand why that's not a possibility. And maybe that is what they're going to end up doing. And if so, it's a stupid, easy solution to this problem. But I just feel like the stakes should not be this high for something so simple. And yet here we are. It's how we're ending the series. And I just think that's so dumb. On top of that, some of the little side stories in this one, Zari's story is just absolutely ridiculous to me. I mean, first of all, the fact that she's upset that she's going to go back to her influencer life, she's not really shown much beyond her influencer personality. And yet all of a sudden now she's this deeply caring person who wants to be a hero. Why is this that big of a deal? Also, sorry, just a little plot hole that popped up in my head that I forgot to talk about until now with the Alan and Gwen stuff. I will say it is kind of dumb that apparently Gideon used Gwen's journals about Alan to make this robot Alan. How did he not write that meaningful message in the journal? Because I know that's what helped him catch on to the fact that this is not Alan. But if that message, I can't remember the whole thing now, but just talk about the river and you'll still be you and I'll still be me and all of that stuff. If that was that big of a thing for him, that it meant that much, he would have written it down. So how did Gideon not see that and program that into Robo Alan? Unless they're just going to go with she didn't see it because she sort of skimmed through the journal. I feel like that's lazy. It's that forced way for the writers to have Gwen figure out that this is Robot Alan instead of it being a more natural way that makes sense. But anyway, just a little plot hole that I felt like was there. But everything else, I mean, everybody gets to see their futures, which I thought was fine. It was probably the most entertaining part, seeing like Bayrod has his little kid show. Obviously, Sarah and Ava, they have a daughter that they adopted. Nate gets to be a historian, which I will say is a little weird since he's supposed to be going to live with Zari in the Totem. So how is he also living in the real world and writing a book for everybody to read? But I don't know. Some of those were pretty fun. I will say it was weird that Gary didn't have any of those. And I guess part of that was he was planning to stay on the ship. But if that was the case, that he was always planning to stay on the ship, then why didn't he make that decision till right at the end? And if he didn't make that decision till right at the end, then why didn't he look at his future? A couple of moments in that I felt were weird, but for the most part, that was probably the best part of this episode, was just getting to see all of those futures. I did think Astra's was a little on the nose. If you know, you know, but I'm not going to get into all that and make this video political. But all in all, it's more so just this feeling for me that this is not the ultimate epic story that I expected the show to go on. I figured there might be something related to trying to save all of time. Like somehow the timeline is about to fall apart. Maybe there's some being that's trying to rip the timeline apart. I don't know, just something epic for them to go up against. And ultimately what the season has been about is they're going around changing the timeline because they want people to feel good about themselves. And then this evil AI going to fix those changes because history should remain the same. And then they stop that evil AI. And now it's going to be about going back and helping this guy that they just met this season that invented all of time travel try to save the love of his life in the middle of a battlefield. Is that the ultimate epic season to finish off the Legends of Tomorrow that you were expecting? Because I certainly was not. And I'm really disappointed by it. Not only that, but we also spent quite a bit of the season, almost half if I'm not mistaken, in the same time period. So even that was a lot less interesting this season because we didn't have the fun of traveling to all these different time periods. We basically were in the 20s and then we jumped to the 40s at one point. jumped to Chernobyl, which I can't remember what year that was, but we didn't even really get to explore that time period. It was just we're in Chernobyl and then we get out before it explodes. I don't know. I don't know what happened this season. I don't know why the writing team felt so limited, felt like they wanted to make this super emotional story that really isn't that emotional, because you have to care about these characters if you want to make an emotional story. And to be perfectly honest, it kind of made me stop caring about them. They made them very bland this season. I feel like the humor was not really there. I feel like a lot of them were not really that interesting for whatever reason. With all that being said, though, on to the finale, the series finale. We'll see, but I'll see you guys there in a minute. And now episode 13, Knocked Down, Knocked Up. I'm sorry. That has to be the funniest thing about this final season, is that they legitimately ended on a cliffhanger thinking they were getting a next season. I didn't even know this. I didn't realize that they didn't know this was the last season going into it, like when they finished it. So I looked it up. I'm like, wait, that's really how it ends? I looked it up. Sure enough, they ended it on a cliffhanger thinking it would be enough to get them another season. That is hilarious to me. Because it's one of those things, as I've been talking about this whole season, the writing has been god-awful. I love the fact that they wrote a terrible season and then put in a cliffhanger thinking, oh, we're good enough to get another season. This show is good enough to get another season. We'll just end it on a cliffhanger because we are so confident in our amazing writing that we'll definitely get a season 8 to wrap the... No, you're done. Oh my God. It's so funny to me. If this show were actually entertaining in this final season, my God, I would have been pissed. I would have been so upset that, what, we're not getting another one after this great... But no, this season was terrible. This is a fine place to end it for me. The legends get put in jail because, yeah, they've been going around changing the timeline willy-nilly because, oh, we want to help people. Okay, that's not your job. And I know that sounds harsh, and I've talked about it this season, but that's not your job. Your job is to keep the timeline intact. Changing history might have worse repercussions that you don't know about. So sure, yeah, they get arrested at the end. Fine by me. It's just... but let's actually dig into this episode, because there were several things that are just stupid. I mean, first of all, of course nobody's going to die. I mean, it doesn't matter how many times that they should have died or that they set it up like somebody was about to die. None of that matters. At the end, they don't die. The only thing that would have happened for season 8 is it would have been Nate would be off the team because he's living in the Totem Mazari now. That's the only thing that would have changed team-wise. But you have multiple moments. You have Spooner, Astra, and Gideon about to die on the blown-up Wave Rider. And honestly, I was thinking to myself, even with the mindset before I knew that this was not supposed to be the final episode of the series, in my mind I'm thinking, there's no way they're going to kill off all 3 of them. They don't have the balls to do that. And so sure enough, when the time ship blows up, and all of a sudden there's a little sphere of energy or whatever for Astra, like, yeah, okay. Sounds about right. And then she just manages to magically fix the time machine too, or the Wave Rider, because why not, to make sure they all 3 can stay safe. Gary, no surprises, he didn't die from getting sucked out of the Wave Rider into the time stream. Killed most people, but not Gary, because that would be sad, guys. We don't want to have people sad around here with people dying. Stupid. Nate gets hit with the mustard gas, which apparently makes his steel skin just go away, which is hilarious to me because I actually looked it up. Mustard gas can corrode steel very, very slowly. And yet for him, he gets hit with it and almost instantly his steel skin just gone. It's just like, yeah, somebody, they did half of the science work. They're like, hey, can mustard gas corrode steel? It can. Well, let's do that. That's how Nate's going to lose his power. So there's tension and he could possibly die. And then what happens? He doesn't die, because that would be sad. We don't want to have sad people around here. For Sarah and Ava, Sarah apparently gets pregnant because they want Sarah and Ava to have their own baby. They don't want to adopt. Guys, let's fix it in this fictional world where women can have babies together without having men around. Isn't that just fantastic? It's like this show is so convinced that if they make it so in their fictional world, that will somehow make it so in our world. So if you want to go back and change history so that all the bad stuff didn't happen, you can do that now. If you want two women to be able to have a baby together so men don't even have to be involved, you can do that now. You can't. That's not scientifically possible. Might be in the future. Who knows? They're probably working on it. We don't have that in our world. So having this is like, yeah, what a win for lesbians. But is it though? Because they can't do that in real life. It's just, again, it's the full of themselves writing that they think they're making such an impact in people's lives. When in reality, I'm willing to bet any lesbians that are watching this show are looking at that going, oh, well, good for them. They can have their own kids. Sucks for us, huh? Like, it's actually kind of condescending that you made it this way in your fictional world, expecting people in the real world to feel good about that. No, that's just sort of, hey, wouldn't it be great if this could happen? Yeah, but it can't. It's so dumb. Zari has a moment in this one where Mortar gets shot at her and she uses her wind powers to turn it around and send it back at the guys. And it's like this big moment for some reason. Like even Bayrod's like, whoa, why? She can use her wind powers. This is not the first time she's done it. And apparently that was enough for her to be like, I'm okay giving this to Nate now. I don't need it anymore. Why? And the fact that she was going to stay on the team after giving up her wind powers, how does that make sense? What is she going to do now? She doesn't have powers anymore. She's not a superhero anymore. And I realize that kind of goes against what I was talking about with Spooner, how giving her her own superpowers instead of making it about her being an alien. But at the same time, Zari needs a reason to be on the team. If she's not providing anything outside of just being there and excitable and Bayrod's sister, what is she providing that's helping the Legends? But outside of that, the stuff with Gwen trying to save Alan and the fixer that shows up, I will say Mike was entertaining, or Booster, which please just stick with Mike. If Booster Gold ever does come back as a character, just don't. What a stupid name. I'm sorry. I know it's based on a comic book character, but it's just a ridiculous name. But he was funny. I actually did enjoy his performance. There was something entertaining about it. He did make me chuckle a couple times, especially whenever he found out that he was stuck there basically as a joke, I guess. There's something funny about that, but I mean, yeah, him turning on the team was kind of dumb. It just felt like, once again, you wanted to have tension, so let's just have Mike decide, you know what, screw those guys. I'm just going to take their time machine and go. So now there's no easy way to resolve the problem. And that's basically the only reason, because then he comes back at the end with all these time cops that are going to arrest everybody. Sure, whatever. I'm assuming the stuff we saw with Gwen and this guy Reese, I'm assuming that was going to be a plot twist for next season, which of course is now not going to be resolved. I'm assuming, though, that was Constantine, because obviously you have the same actor playing both parts, and now this version of Gwen is doing something completely different than what our version of Gwen remembers. So in my mind, that tells me that this is probably Constantine posing as him. I don't know why. I don't know how that makes sense, but I'm assuming that's what's happening here. And it would probably be resolved in the next season. I don't care, really, because it's stupid that he's here to begin with, because if he's here, that means Gwen is not. So then how would Gwen feel bad about Alan dying, and then how would he invent time travel? And once again, why are we changing the timeline that we have worked so hard in Crisis to make sure stayed intact? But whatever. The stuff with Gideon is basically similar to what she went through already this season, where the AI version of her is trying to convince her to give up her human side, so that way she doesn't have to feel pain anymore. And because she hasn't had anybody around to tell her otherwise, she is kind of falling for that now. I'm just thinking, okay, so we've gone through this story before. Astro and Spooner show up and then convince her not to give up all of that stuff, just like before. Deja vu, anyone? Any writers working on this episode go, hey, guys, we already wrote this episode. Episode 3, if you go back, it was pretty good. This is probably the best episode this season. Why are we doing this again? Ultimately having AI Gideon put herself into an android and then try to attack them and then eventually get blown up with the ship. It felt kind of pointless. It felt like they wanted to have a villain for this final episode, so they just turned AI Gideon. After they worked so hard in the last episode to basically get her off their backs, now all of a sudden she's here again as the main villain, and now she's turned our Gideon into basically a robot. It feels lazy. It feels like they didn't have any clever ideas, so I don't know, let's just have AI Gideon try to revert human Gideon back into AI mode. I just feel like there are so many other things you could have done with that, but this feels lazy to me. But with that being said, that does wrap it up for the final episode of Legends of Tomorrow. And obviously, it's disappointing. From where this show came from to where it is now in the final season, it's disappointing because this show used to be fun. It used to be a good time. I was entertained. Even in the seasons whenever the concept was maybe a little silly or maybe I wasn't quite connecting with some of the stories, it still felt like they knew how to make it entertaining. They knew how to make it fun. This season did not feel fun to me. It felt boring. It felt bland. A lot of the jokes were not landing. I just feel like this season as a whole took a severe cliff dive, basically. And I'm not surprised at all that they didn't get renewed for a new season. And like I said, I kind of am glad that it didn't, because this was a very good sign that things were about to really fall off a cliff. And it's something that I think The Flash probably should have done a couple seasons ago, because I don't remember exactly which season now. I think it was season 7, but I remember watching that season thinking, this wasn't good. And then I hear that they have 2 more seasons after, and all I can think is, man, it was already this bad. Who knows how bad it's going to get? So for Legends, it might be a good thing that this season was the last one, because this season was bad. Season before wasn't great, but was still entertaining enough. I still remember having a good time with it, and Bishop was a pretty fun villain to have. So for me, I personally am glad that it ends here, where we just have one bad season. The rest of the show, pretty good, pretty solid. So those are my overall thoughts, but let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. What were your thoughts on this final season and on Legends of Tomorrow as a whole? Let me know. We can talk about and discuss all that good stuff. Leave a like and subscribe for future CW shows, better CW shows in my opinion. Also check out the channel. We have a lot of reviews on there as well as some Let's Plays, so check those out if you have time. But until next time, Legends, gonna miss the good you. But I'll see you guys when I see you. Peace out.